I am the greatest, the greatest, the greatest, the greatest.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the GOAT Debate Podcast. I am your host, Darius Brown, and with me is Meech. Well, okay, not Meech. Mike. Meech is out enjoying some family vacation this week, so I got to the bat phone and called up my homeboy Mike, the artist, the musician, the know-it-all of know-it-alls. And so he's going to hop on and join me on this podcast venture with a pretty interesting topic, I think. I think it's a little bit different from what we've gone in the last couple episodes. So thank you for joining us and jumping on here and kind of saving the day here, Mike.
Oh, man, I'm happy to be here. I mean, I love talking about sci-fi TV shows, and I love podcasts. So I'm just so happy to actually join you. I mean, we haven't hung out in such a long time, but just these few minutes, I feel like we're just catching up, just like normal, man.
Absolutely. Mike and I grew up in the same neck of the woods, so way back in the Chucktown area. So we'll catch up here, and we hanging out in a couple. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, a couple of weeks in Colombia. As I go back home of sorts. But that's neither here nor there. That's not a mystery. All right, we know what's going on there. What is a mystery, Mike, is a lot of the shows that we'll be talking about tonight. There's a lot of mysterious things that happen. We're going to be talking about sci-fi TV. Now, not just any type of old school sci-fi. When I think of sci-fi, I usually think of Star Trek. That's the first thing that pops into my brain. Leave all that. I know the Trekkies will be upset. That's for a different podcast, for a different show, probably. This is modern sci-fi. When you say modern sci-fi, can you put a descriptor on that? What comes to mind when you say modern sci-fi?
Well, I think sci-fi has been a genre around forever. Like I would even consider like Alfred Hitchcock Presents as sci-fi. And it's kind of like, it's eerie, things happen, but like it, Star Trek is one of the original, and everybody's heard of Star Trek. I mean, there's Deep Space Nine, there's Star Trek Voyager. I kind of wanted to move because I think right now we're in a heyday of like awesome sci-fi shows, and like I think they're just getting like so creative and exciting and using just other content, not just like exploring space anymore or aliens coming down. It's they're dealing with like otherworldly things, supernatural like powers. And I think like nowadays our understanding of like the universe and potential other worlds, and also like just the creativity of like sci-fi writing is now starting to like show up in television. So I kind of wanted to throw back and just like not talk about Star Trek, not talk about Star Wars, or just talk about like what's kind of new and exciting, and not all these shows are like brand new, but like there's a lot of good ones out there now that I think are worth a watch.
Definitely. And I think what we'll kind of because I know some people are like, okay, sci-fi, I don't really get down with sci-fi like that, but I think you would be surprised, and maybe by some of the picks that we have this evening, that some things are classified as sci-fi that maybe you didn't realize was a sci-fi show. So, we'll jump into some of that. And let's go ahead and get started. For those who don't know, the GOAT Debate Podcast is a combination of the votes from the people we call the tribe, our audience, and as well as the votes of ourselves, the host. And in this case, Mike is joining in as the host this week. And we combine those rankings, that formula, to get our composite list of our top 5. But before we get to the top 5, we got a couple shows that just didn't quite make the cut. Usually it's our first 2 out, but Mike, this week it's the first 3 out. So here are some of the best modern sci-fi shows that you could catch on TV. And the first one that didn't would be Dirk Gently Holistic Detective Agency. Now, Mike, I had never heard of this before it made the list. Dirk, I don't know what this is. Please tell me, what the heck is a Dirk Gently?
Okay, this show is one of like the quirkiest shows I've seen. I saw it on Hulu, and I don't know if anybody knows that writer Douglas Adams. He did the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He also wrote this Dirk Gently Holistic Detective Agency. And you start watching this show, and it is quirky as hell. It's about this guy who like solves mysteries, but everything he's doing is like on a feeling and on a whim, and he's not using any like facts or clues, and he is just running around doing all these things. And his companion in this show is played by Elijah Wood. So it is a really silly show, and it's completely unexpected, and then wild things happen, and each season they somehow tie every bit of information together. And I mean, like I said, there's some silliness to it, but it is also like so well written, and so tied together. It's kind of magic watching that show.
Okay, so what makes it a sci-fi show? Is it set in the future? Is it somebody got some powers?
Well, it's not really set in the future, but yeah, Dirk Gently has these like weird holistic powers where he solves these mysteries in really weird ways. But then there are like these other characters, and I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but people have powers in the show. But
okay,
like one girl just walks around, like she shoots people and she never dies. No matter what she does, she gets in all these violent situations and she never dies. And so she is like a holistic assassin. And her whole it's like these people have these roles, and they don't like behave like a typical detective or a typical assassin. And it's just, but everything they do is just about like their role, but they don't go about like being an assassin or a detective in any normal way. It's just really quirky and really hilarious. And at some points they start like crossing into other worlds and other. It's just like it's like an acid trip sometimes in that show, but it's also like a big question mark over your head. And the main character, Dirk Gently, is dragging along this Elijah Wood character that just hates it all. It's just hilarious.
Which is, you don't really see like a comedy spin in sci-fi. I feel I'm trying to think of another example of a comedy, or
you're right.
So that's a different kind of twist to sci-fi, I would say.
I mean, they some like sci-fi always uses comedy. I mean, sci-fi is also a long-standing genre, so they use like comedy to reference itself and sometimes make jokes about the genre itself. But usually the stories end up getting mysterious or or dangerous, or sometimes there are love stories tied into it. Yeah, like
okay,
yeah.
All right, well, let me ask you this, because with any TV series, well, let me rephrase that. So not all TV series will hook you on the pilot episode. Is this one that's going to take you right away into what's going on and jump into it and hook you, or it's only 2 seasons long, you said, or is this a long play over those course of two seasons?
Okay, there's not many shows that do this. And what I think it does is it really, every episode is like unexpected. And then every episode you're asking more questions. And by the end of the episode, by the end of the season, like all your questions are answered and everything is tied together. So the first episode, it starts off with some action and like the main characters meet up. And they're trying to figure out this mystery. I mean, Elijah Wood's character doesn't care about the mystery, but Dirk Gently is like all about the mystery. And I mean, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of characters, and I think it hooks you pretty quickly. But like I said, it is very quirky, and if you're not looking for a comedy sci-fi show, Dirk Gently isn't the one you should be searching for. So, but it's got a pretty great cast. I mean, surprisingly, Elijah Wood is in it. And I mean, there's some other great actors. I can't name them off the top of my head right now.
All right. Fair enough. 1 second, Mike. Let me, oh, we're good. Had a child running through. And now I have a chair running through. So if I can have things stop being thrown at me, we can move on to our next one. So make sure you check out Dirk Gently Holistic Detective Agency. But let's see here. Next on the list that got cut out, one that you have not seen. How you have not seen this, I do not know. But we will go to one of my favorite. Let me see this is my number 4 pick, and it somehow got put out. I'm talking about none other than Westworld. Westworld, Mike. You're telling me you have never seen an episode of Westworld? I
mean, I've heard it referenced, and I still have no idea what it's about. For my love of sci-fi shows, I'm surprised I didn't hear of this.
Okay, all right. That greatly disappoints me. So let me catch you up, and maybe others haven't heard, or because it's on HBO, maybe they haven't had access to it yet. Let's see. How do you put Westworld? So what it is it's a world that was created for entertainment. So guests pay an exorbitant amount to get on a train and get trained into this world where you leave everything else behind. It's like the ultimate vacation. So in this world, you can do whatever you want. Anything goes. So you basically come here to live out your greatest fantasies.
Is this like a virtual world you go into? They go into a virtual world?
Virtual. No, sir.
Oh, it's a real
It's a real world where every part of the world was designed and created, basically cosplay, if you will. So it's cosplay in this world, and it's Western themed. Is the gist of it. And so you go in, you're in your Western clothes, and you're like I said, trained into the middle of town, which is the typical stereotypical one road with buildings on each side, maybe a salon here and barber shop over here. Very typical. But the twist is
the people can't get out. They can't get out. Is that it?
Oh, no, not well. You're kind of right. You're half right. The can't get out is right. But it isn't people that can't get out. It's robots that can't get out.
Oh.
So the town is populated by robots that are programmed. The AI is programmed to where they can respond and they can act as if they have real emotions. They don't even know that they're robots. And so you can kill these these robots, and they get sent back and reprogrammed as if nothing happens. And so they're programmed with a storyline. So all of them have storylines, and they don't really know they have storylines. Memories are put in. So it's probably, but here's it's so well written because you're following this guy who goes into Westworld, but at the same time you're seeing another storyline. And spoiler alert, I got to do a little bit of a spoiler alert. There's different timelines going on. So you're trying to keep up with what's going on.
At what time?
People at what time.
Yeah.
Right. So it is just an amazing. James, who was gracious enough to take my spot last week, has seen a few episodes of Westworld, and it's pretty good. It's into season 3 now. The first season is amazing because the whole thing is a puzzle. You're just trying to figure out, there's basically somebody dies, and you're trying to solve this whole mystery as they're jumping through different time lines as it's all going through. So you're not sure who's a robot, who's not a robot, who knows about the robots, who doesn't know about the robots, and it's all a mystery. So Westworld is so amazing.
When you started on this whole description of this show, and you said people get on this train and they go to another world, first thing I thought was just a really long trip to the Epcot Center in Disney. When you go inside and you go around and you see all the people singing. Oh man.
Yep.
But
it's an updated version of that.
Well, I mean, that sounds like, it sounds really bizarre. So when you say there are different timelines, are you saying there are different like stories going on, and like when you're watching the show, you're seeing something that may have happened a year in advance, or you're like,
what?
They break off into different like timelines? Like, is there time travel?
There is no time travel. You're viewing what happened maybe 30 years. I can't remember what the set time is, but you see something that happens 30 years ago, but you think it's happening as you're watching it right then and there. So you're a couple episodes in before you realize, whoa, wait a minute. What I've been watching this whole time isn't a current timeline. This happened sometime in the past. So you don't get that right away. There's not like, oh, this is a flashback dream sequence. So it takes you like so long through the season to realize that, oh, I have not been watching one congruent season the entire time. So you're like, and then you get that realization, and you're like, oh crap. Now you want to go back and rewatch things to start trying to put the puzzle together. It's freaking amazing.
I mean, that sort of script writing must have taken so much planning to show a story, and then multiple like storylines, and then they all tie in together, but then they don't, like, you realize that they aren't going on at the same time. So many of these sci-fi shows do that, and that's kind of the beauty of the genre. They're just not stuck to like the regular sitcom or the regular like drama TV show, or like even 24. Now 24 is a great show from what I've heard, but like its timeline is, it's all about action and politics and things going on, but it's always in the same timeline, and like unexpected things happen, but not like that kind of a creative script writing you're talking about.
Yeah, and they took their creativity even outside. Like, you can go into, they had a website that I think it was at the end of the season. I don't know if it was after the season had completed or right before that, but just to kind of tie you in, where you can go there as if you're booking a trip to Westworld, and you can ask questions and it would answer. It was a whole deal. It was just, really well done. There's so many facets of it, and they give you a little hint of other worlds, like trip to the Orient.
Man, this
So
sounds like
that shows you how big the world actually is.
this sounds like another show that if I got into, I would get into the fandom of and just like completely consume the whole like series as fast as I could. I'm glad I got on this show so I can hear of a new sci-fi show that I haven't
Yes.
started in.
Check out Westworld, y'all. All right, Mike, we got one more out. The next show that got put out is another one that's like, how did this not make it into our top
Classic,
five?
a classic.
Lost. Lost, the TV show. Now, Mike, this show I did not watch as it was happening. It got to Netflix before I watched it. Did you watch Lost as it was happening, or did you binge it later?
No, I binged it pretty hard in like 2009. It was like for months it was the show that I would consume. So I did not I don't think I watched it while it was coming out, but I know I was catching up to everybody else who'd seen it. And I think binging it is better to watch it because I would not want to wait between episodes.
Yes, it's one that you gotta. And for those who don't know, man, I don't want to give anything away with describing the series, but there is a plane crash, and most of the people on the plane died, and a handful made it safely to this island, but nobody really knows what happened and how they got there, and they're trying to piece things together because they are essentially lost. And so you follow these characters as they kind of figure out who they are and try and determine who the other people who are lost on the island with them. All the while, things start happening on the island that probably shouldn't happen on any island.
Indescribable things. I would have to say that I think this show kind of the creativity sort of comes from like that Lovecraftian, like unknown horror kind of sci-fi or horror writing. But another thing about the show is like the personalities are really great. The whole first season, you don't even think it's a sci-fi show. It's just
right.
You just think, oh, these people are lost. Okay, this is like a drama that's kind of like real life Survivor. Like they're trying to live on this island and survive. And then towards the end of season 1, from what I remember, they start experiencing these weird things and they have no explanation for them. And I'd say half of the things that happen in that show don't get explained.
Yes. And here's the thing that got me. Before I even started to binge Lost, I'd already heard that the ending was horrible. That's all I heard was great show, horrible ending. So I'm thinking to myself, do I even go through that, because I watched Dexter. Dexter was an amazing show that had a notoriously horrible ending. So I was like, man, can I do that to myself again? But I was like, ultimately, it came at a great time where I didn't have a lot. And guess what? I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the ending.
I didn't hate the ending either. I would tell viewers who are thinking about getting into it that a lot is not explained, 1. And 2, if you look up after you watch it, the show is fairly metaphorical. So, like, things stand for other things and places mean other things. And I loved and hated the show because, like, some of me was like, I have to see what's going to happen next episode. I have to know why this is what. And then they wouldn't even talk about it the next episode. They'd answer. Yeah. They'd ask you 10, make you ask 10 questions, and then they would answer 2 of them, and then some new horror or new new thing is coming up, and it's just a lot. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it is. But ultimately, I would say it's worth the watch. Very interesting. Like you said, you don't catch that you're in a sci-fi TV show right away. But once you do, then things get kind of weird. But it's interesting enough. It's deserving all the praise. Definitely check out Lost. I believe it's on Netflix. That's where I caught it. So check that out. Now, Mike, time to get into the meat and potato of things. Top 5 best modern sci-fi TV shows of all time. We thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Go ahead and do that now. What are you waiting for? You should have already done that. But now that we've gotten the business out the way, let's get to the fun part. Coming in at number 5, Mike, I saw the first season of this show. I have not watched it all. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I know this is a popular show. It is a favorite of yours. This show has been nominated for 4 Saturn Awards. It is run for 5 seasons so far, 2016 to 19. So they've squeezed a couple in. It has got a 91% Rotten Tomatoes score. That's pretty freaking good. We're talking about The Magicians, which can be on Netflix. That's where I caught up on it. What can you tell me about The Magicians?
Okay, so this show is like hilarious. It's a little cringy. But the writing is so clever. It's a sci-fi show, so it's from that Sci-Fi Channel. And Sci-Fi is known for releasing like wonderful, like new sci-fi shows. Some of the ones that we didn't talk about that aren't on the list are like Firefly. I mean, that's a classic. They came out with a show called Dark Matter. That's great. They came out with a zombie show called Z Nation. It's one of my favorite. But Magicians is just so, oh man, it's so like cringy, but it's also so funny because it's so good at making fun of itself. It has kind of that meta humor where like somebody will walk in the room and say something, but they kind of the writing and they know of like the kind of character they are. They know who they are. So Magicians starts off first season with this main character Q, and he loves this book, this fantasy book that's a lot like what is that book that everyone Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Mm-hmm. This book is about this fantasy land called Fillory, and he loves this book. He wants to be a magician. He learns like regular magic, right. And then he goes through college, and then he somehow stumbles upon this magician school that actually teaches magic, and it's like he's in grad school. So think like Harry Potter. Think, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, C.S. Lewis, and I guess maybe I don't know about Game of Thrones. No, I'm not gonna throw Game of Thrones in there, but it's like Harry Potter in grad school, and it's like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe because there's this other world dimension that you can connect to. It's humorous. It's a little sexy, but it's like really cheesy sexy, which if you know like those sci-fi fantasy shows, I mean, it's silly, but it is just like they know what they're doing, and then they make fun of it like in later seasons. And like the seasons just get better and better. Like usually, 2 or 3 seasons, and then it starts to fall downhill. The 4th, I think I've only gotten through the 4th season because I think that's as much as it's on Netflix, and they're still going through the 5th season on Sci-Fi. But the 4th season is just so good, and it keeps you hooked because the story just keeps growing and evolving, and the characters that used to be side characters have their own like storylines. So I want to know what you thought of that show when you saw the first season.
Yeah, it was. I was wondering if I'd be able to get hooked in it because you start talking about magic, which obviously it's the title of the show. Like, could it hook me enough? Now I thought it was interesting twist on it, in the if you go back and watch it, it's talking about what type of magic, can you rule the world with this magic? And they said, well, I mean, you can try. So there's little humor like that I thought was interesting. I thought and then there's a hook with his dad. I'm trying to recall. I saw it, a little bit. Where does he not know his dad, or because doesn't he have a dark bar? I remember he's in the garage. What I thought was like maybe a grandfather or an uncle or somebody, not his father.
I think it's his father because his father is sick. I think with cancer. Yeah,
but there was something going on with his dad. I feel like I'm like a psychic. There's something, you see something with his father, and he doesn't really get along with his father.
Okay, so here's the thing. This gets addressed in later seasons, but you're right. There's something wrong with his father. His father has cancer, and he is starting to learn magic. And he might not have a great relationship with his father, but he still cares about him. I think, and so he wants to learn magic to heal him as well. I mean, he's fascinated with magic. Quinn, or Q in the show, he's fascinated with Quentin. He's fascinated with magic, but he wants to learn how to heal his father. And it's also kind of funny because he's in grad school, and there's each different classes of magic, and they all have their different abilities, and they do different things. One guy is a traveler, so he teleports from place to place, and that's kind of his ability, and he's unique because of that. And Quentin never finds the first season just doesn't find out what kind of magic he wants to do. So he's kind of this undecided, kind of depressive character, and he kind of falls in love with this nerdy, book smart character. And then there's this punk character who's just doesn't care what anybody thinks, and he just kind of cares about himself. And so they have these tropes of characters, which sci-fi is really good at doing this. It's good at making shows that make references to the genre that the show is.
Right.
And it's just such a really, the first season kind of gets you into the lore of everything that's going on in Magicians. And then the rest of it is them just continuing to go on adventures that get bigger and grander, and they take on different enemies and challenges. But while they're doing that, they're developing their story, and the characters actually grow. They don't stay as the same nerdy. There's this nerdy self-doubting character, and then she gets powerful, and then she changes, and then everyone else's moods around her change, and the show is very well written in that way. So the characters are very well entwined, but there is some humor to it. I would say there's some drama to it as well. So it doesn't just sit in one of these categories of it's an action show, or it's a drama, or or it's a comedy. It's just a well-written story. What I would say about Magicians.
All right. Folks can check it out. Like you said, it was on Sci-Fi. You can also find it on Netflix. I don't know if they've caught up to all the seasons yet. Shane Howard is in the chat, and he said he saw the first episode and never really went back. Yeah, I don't know what something about magic. It's just it's intriguing enough to get there, but it didn't hook me enough to tune into season 2. So I don't know what the disconnect for me was, but
I will say it's a little bit cheesy. It's a little bit cheesy.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe
that's it. I enjoy some cheese.
Well, one more thing to add to that. Like sci-fi is good at doing that for people who know the genre. They give them this like cheesy show that, you know, makes fun of itself. They did the same thing with this show called Z Nation that I love, and it's all about zombies, but they just continue to like make it weirder. So I think Magicians is another good way of doing that, but the story is much better in Magicians than it is many other TV shows that sci-fi has produced.
That's why it came in at number 5. All right, moving right along to number 4 on our list. This is a 2-time Emmy-nominated show, a show I had never seen until this afternoon, where I was trying to catch up because it became so highly recommended. It made the top 5, so I was like, I better see this. Now, it's very interesting to me. I got to just get into this because I've got a lot of questions here. 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've got a typo there, so I'm going to fix that. But it is number 4, The Friend, from 2008 through 2012. I know this was high on your list. It was also high on some of the Tribes lists. The Fringe. This one, go ahead, Mike.
I don't think I put this on my list, which I'm actually super excited that it's on the list though, because I watched this whole series and it like I can't believe it like skipped my mind that this was one of those top TV shows that I watched. You watched one episode, so you can't like this show is like so much bigger than one episode. It's about science and it's about wonder and it's about parallel universes, and it just keeps going deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole. I would say like it's on the same par with Lost. I mean, it's winning the same awards. It gets compared to Lost a lot, but I think it's much more well-rounded than Lost, because Lost is, you ask all these questions, you don't know why. Fringe does a good job of answering those questions, but oh man, there's just so much like danger in that show. Once you get into the later seasons, because I mean, they discover how to cross over into other parallel universes where things are just slightly different. And then you get this like weird confrontation where it's like you see someone in the show and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's the person from this universe or the other universe, and like, or what their intentions are, or if that universe is trying to kill people in this universe. It is crazy. It's just I don't know, man. It sucked me in. It was one of those shows that I like show after show after show, watched each one, and I never got tired of it.
Yeah, and you're right. It was the Tribe's number 1 pick. That's how it gets into the top 5, even though you didn't vote for it and I didn't vote for it. But yeah, so I sat down and I started watching this premiere episode, and it follows this FBI agent when all of a sudden something unexplained happens on a plane and people's bodies become see-through. You could see their organs and they don't know what the heck is going on. So what they do is they go to this Harvard scientist who is locked up in a mental institute and they recruit him. And the only way to recruit him is to get Joshua Jackson's character, who is his son, to get him checked out of this mental institute. And they go in to try to solve this mystery. And the scientist was in the basement of Harvard in the 70s, learning all kinds of different things that are not easily explained. And now he's a crazy person, as some might say. So it kind of is like, okay, can you believe this guy? The first thing he wants to do to solve this mystery of why people's bodies turn into jello is to connect the FBI agent through the neck, pump her with LSD, and have her connect, the subconscious with the another dying FBI agent. So it's crazy. But like you said, there's science involved. There's mystery, things that cannot be explained involved. It was a very compelling storyline just from the premiere. So I was like, ooh, I think I might have to get into this.
So John Noble is like that crazy LSD scientist in that show, and that other actor you mentioned, Jackson, Joshua Jackson is his son. And this is another one of these TV shows that is directed by J.J. Abrams. And he's really good at writing these like bizarre shows that like involve like multiple levels of like science and just sci-fi. I mean, just the things that are happening in this world, and then like connecting other universes, and it is just, I mean, it's a pretty heady show if you're into all that like science. And I mean, like they're using like sensory deprivation tanks to try to tap into other senses to connect with other like places, and like it is crazy, and it's just so creative. I don't know. I loved that show. I watched it probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and I just couldn't put it down. So
yeah. You definitely want to check it out. I think you can get it on Amazon Prime now. You can get it a couple other places as well. I think YouTube, you could pay for it there as well. But make sure you check out Fringe. Just a captivating from the start show. Now, the next one on our list, as we go to number 1, top modern sci-fi TV shows of all time, this one might have some people upset. This one makes the list because it was high on my list. Go figure. But I'm only putting the first season. Unlike any of the other shows on this list, only the first season of this show can I vouch for. After that, you throw it away. So that's kind of weird, but I think the first season is that good. So this show, it came out in 2007. It's got 2000 or 2007.
2006.
Fact check. Yeah, 2006. But the thing is, it got like 8 Emmy nominations in its very first season. So I'm telling you, that's why it's legit. Writers Guild Awards, because the writing was on par. Man, let me get to it. 83% Rotten Tomatoes for the first season. I have to keep.
We'll just leave it at that, right? Just leave it at the first season.
First season. It's Heroes, which came on an NBC right before the writer's strike. We'll talk about that in a second there. Did you ever see Heroes, Mike?
Oh, yeah. I consumed the first season, and then, I think I started the second season, and I don't think I hated the second season, but then I just dropped off of it. But from what I remember, that first season is so well, like, choreographed or written or scripted, It's like it ties in very well to itself, which is like apparently a qualifier for good TV shows, or ones that like give you the full story and wrap around, and that one did it.
Yeah, and Shane put in the chat, save the cheerleader, save the world. That was the mantra for the first season. At first you didn't know what that meant, but for those who haven't seen Heroes, it's kind of like X-Men, whereas all these people have powers. It's not revealed to the public really, or they try to hide it from the public. The cheerleader, we find out, I guess she has some kind of like Wolverine healing powers where she can self-heal.
Yeah. And super
she
strength too, right? Did she have super strength?
I don't
too?
remember the strength. I don't
Okay.
remember the strength. I just remember specifically that first trailer, but her like falling off things and getting up, and her kind of like testing. She's trying to figure out what's going on to her body. There's people who can fly, and then what Mike? What did it for me was the villain, Siler, the villain in this. At least in the first season, so good, so good. You know, we find out that he can absorb powers eventually. So he's basically becoming the greatest thing that's ever hit on the planet Earth. But while all these, while people are trying to figure out who needs to be saved and who this cheerleader is, turns out the cheerleader's dad might be involved with how these people have powers or knows about the powers. Trying not to spoil it. So there's a weird, edginess as you're like, oh, we got to save this girl. But what did her dad do? What's going on here? So
what I remember about this show is that it's one of these sci-fi shows that the villain really, really felt evil. They really felt like they were doing some really evil things. And it just felt a little bit more like emotional, like a real evil emotion coming from those evil characters like Skylar. And I mean, how did he consume other people's powers? Didn't he have to kill them first?
I believe so.
Oh yeah, and I think I remember it being such a gruesome death to each like hero he killed, and that's what started making him more powerful. Sorry if that's a spoiler to anybody.
Bum, bum, bum. But the other interesting part is how everybody's connected. We slowly get a slow reveal that maybe these people aren't all strangers. Maybe they somehow have a relationship of sorts, and maybe they're not even aware of it in some cases, many cases. So, I mean, that first season was so fantastic. I recommend anybody watch it. Like, sort of like Watchmen, a more recent film TV show, where it got the first season, and I don't think we're getting another one. But some people are like, "Man, that first season was so good. Leave it alone."
Yeah, I have not seen Watchmen, and I've heard nothing but amazing things about that show, and it's like on my list right now to watch.
Yeah, we got to finish it. We haven't finished it yet, but it is a very good show. But yeah,
well, since we're on heroes right now, I want to do a shout out to two other sci-fi shows that kind of follow the same kind of themes. One of them is Umbrella Academy on Netflix. Great show. Same thing about these like kids with powers, and somehow they're all connected. They're all born on the same day, and they're all brought underneath this one guy, and they become superheroes. And it's like later on in their past. That show is amazing. The characters are well written. It's one of the best shows Netflix has been producing recently. So Umbrella Academy, and this other one on Amazon called The Boys. That's about to get
that one.
Oh man. Okay, so content warning. That show is like pretty gruesome. Like there's a lot of gore in that show, and there's a lot of other adult themes in that show. So I'd be careful watching that one with your kids. But The Boys is a great TV show about normal guys taking on superheroes, and superheroes are this like corporate entity that they go around and save people. Okay, you're right. The Boys is better than Umbrella Academy, and it's getting a second season. But yeah, they're trying, like, the heroes save people, but they're just like endorsed by all these like products and everything. And it gets pretty heavy. It's a really well written show, and I cannot wait for the second season.
My question is, why are there no standalone villain shows. Like, why are if you got a superpower, people are always good. Like, let's be realistic. People getting superpowers. They're robbing banks.
Well, I would argue The Boys is that because
okay.
Because everyone, well, not everyone with superpowers is bad, but everyone with superpowers is part of this organization that has evil motives, and the boys are the boys, the normal guys who are trying to find a way to take out these evil superheroes that they're not here to protect you. They're not here to keep you safe.
Okay.
They're kind of for their own glory and their own like fame. And that's
perfect.
I think The Boys is awesome. And I'm sorry I didn't put it on my list.
Okay. So yeah, with that being said, maybe I'll check it out. Cause it's good to get away from the stereotypical and, everybody who's got superpowers is doing good things unless there's, some other person who has superpowers and is evil and they have to combat it, whatever. I like the villainous route. All right, Mike, let's get back on track to the number one modern sci-fi television show of all time with number 2. This one, I don't know where to go with this one. This is 8 Emmys here, running from 2011. I believe it's still currently up. This show is a show made up of many shows.
It is so heavy. It is such a heavy mental show that can make you feel great or make you feel miserable. And each episode is so well written, and it's standalone stories. And it makes me afraid to be a human being sometimes.
It absolutely does, and that's exactly what they're going for on Black Mirror. 83% Rotten Tomatoes score. Black Mirror can now be found on Netflix. I think it might have started in BBC originally, but you'll see a lot of cameos from big A, B, and C list stars in there. Miley Cyrus. Oddly enough, she's the first one that pops in my brain.
Me too.
I'm trying to think. There's a bunch.
Well, it's because
there's a lot, but I can't think of any of them.
It's because each episode is a standalone story. It's about an hour long, and actually, Black Mirror kind of broke the formula for television on Netflix. They created a movie that was interactive. You could interact with called Bandersnatch. Did you ever see that?
Okay. So let's get into Bandersnatch. Now they've had other choose your own destinies. I think maybe Puss in Boots was the first one on Netflix. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But I think this is the first for adults. But yeah, so that was a choose your own ending film that was they kind of paused on the seasons of Black Mirror to release this. And for those who didn't see, I think it followed a game developer.
Yeah, it was about a guy developing a game where you could choose your own adventure. But the show itself is a choose your own adventure show. So you can even just like at one point you decide what music he's listening to. And I remember when we saw that here at my house, we had like 10 people over, and every time a decision came up, everybody was yelling, "No, go to the right. No, go to the left." It was such a fun experience. So, I mean, Black Mirror has created a live experience that you could watch on Netflix, which is amazing. But the show itself is like so, I don't even know how to say it. It's just every episode makes you think about future in technology development and the dilemmas that come with it.
Right. So there's definitely a major morality tone to each episode and technology. So it's blending those. Some of my favorite episodes. One of the I think for me is the best episode is it kind of points the finger at technology today. And it's the one where the The girl is, you see her right away, and you could tell something's going on. Oh, wait. Everybody in the world rates you based on every action you do. So
every interaction. Yeah.
Every single thing. And you get a score, and your score dictates your place in society. It's like a caste system.
Yeah.
So if you give somebody the finger, they're gonna turn around and they're gonna take some cool points from you, and your score will go down, and that will not allow you to move into a neighborhood. In this case, she wanted to go to a certain neighborhood, but her score wasn't high enough. Even worse, she wanted to go to her best friend's wedding from her childhood, but the best friend was a high, let's say she's in the 90s in her score. Yeah. And she was like, couldn't be caught seen with someone who had like a 70 score. And it was just a whole mess, but it kind of makes you put in perspective, judging people and, trying to please people. So it's, it takes all these people who live on Twitter and Instagram for likes and a status there, and it puts it, what if that happened to you in your everyday real life? People couldn't even get into work, Mike, because their score wasn't high enough. People were begging outside of their job for other people to give them some bonus points so they could walk into the door of their job, Mike. So
this Black Mirror is kind of interesting because it follows a similar formula to what the Twilight Zone was and what Alfred Hitchcock Presents was, but it's hard to even call this a sci-fi show because some of these episodes are about technology that is like almost within our grasp right now, like that rating.
Some of them are.
Yeah, and it's frightening. I just watched an episode for the first time that was about like dating, and you have this app on your device and you date this person, and it tells you you meet up with this person, and then when you meet up, you can, if you both can consent, you can agree to see how long the relationship lasts.
Oh yeah. I remember that one.
It was torturous, and like we let these little bits of technology like control our lives in this show, and it not every episode is depressing, but I'd say 90%, maybe 83% of the show is depressing. And that's kind of why it's so good. I can never watch more than 2 episodes a night. I just can't, because it's so heavy and you feel so much for the characters in the show, and you realize that our technology could go in those directions and we could be living more miserable lives than we are right now. And of course it's a fictional show. It's just, and it like begs those questions. Should mankind, we can, but should we? And that's what it does. That's what it's kind of what the show kind of asks the viewer when we watch those episodes. Oh,
so good. And we talk about celebs. Anthony Mackie, who's in a lot of the Avengers movies, played in one that I think it was the latest season, but where he is a gamer. But in these games, you can actually go into the game. So he plays a fighting game with a friend, and it turns out that they have a romantic relationship, and he's a dude. So 2 guys have a romantic relationship inside the game, but outside he's married. He's supposedly happily married, and then there's this conflict that he's fighting within. He's like, it's weird because at first his character is a guy and the other one's a girl, or vice versa. So they start making out in the game, but it's a guy and a girl in the game, but it's really both guys. So
it's interesting, because
living your truth is what that one's about.
Yeah, I mean, it's like funny because like those 2 characters had a relationship on an emotional level, but in reality, they didn't want to go through with a relationship on a physical level because of either social expectations or their personal sexual preference. I mean, that whole show is about making the viewer uncomfortable and making them ask these questions of like, well, is this a good thing to have in our society? And how like these new developments in technology can like really upset our way of life. And some episodes are actually happy. I will say some episodes end positively, but I mean, not all of them, not many of them, I would say.
Yeah, not many of them, but it's a great series to watch. And the great thing about it also is that you can jump in wherever you want. You could just see the title and like, oh, that may intrigue me. Let me jump into that one and then go to episode 5 and then go to 2 and wherever you want to go with it. You can watch it straight, but you don't have to. So,
and the music is great too. The music in the show is great.
So good, especially in Bandersnatch. Very good there. Yeah. But man, so I'm waiting. I don't know what's going on with the series, where it's at, if it's being renewed, or what's going on with it. But I'm hoping we get another season of it. So
I feel like I still need to catch up on how many seasons there are. Like I feel like I didn't get through season 5 all the way. So
yeah, I watched a ranking today of someone who ranked all the episodes from least favorite to his favorite. And I was like, whoa, I don't know that I saw that episode. So I may have to go back through and rewatch a couple of them. And plus, they're so good. There's one that's in black and white and pretty much silent for most of it, and it's about robot dogs that seemingly taking over the planet. And those dogs have definitely been inspired by Boston Robotics or something like that. Have you seen the robots that they're making?
Yeah.
That flip, that do the backflips and all kinds of stuff. So it looks like it was inspired by that, and that's kind of scary because those things they may not be here because they're still remote control operated, but dang, it could be getting close. So scary stuff, Mike.
Oh, that show is scary, and like, I don't know. I if anybody is not sure if they want to see it, like, just be like the show doesn't necessarily make you feel good while watching it. So just know that there's not a lot of comedy in these shows. They're really heavy, and they really make you think about the human condition in relation to the advancements in technology. So if you want something heavy, it's good heavy show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. All right, Mike, we're in this time of the show where we typically go to our snubs, those that did not make our top 5, but they were still so good, we still got to talk about them. I know you gave a couple of yours earlier. Yeah. Maybe you'll have some more that'll go in, but one I know is on your list because it made my top 5, but did not make our list, and it probably makes some people angry. It's a show that's set in the 80s, Mike. Set in the 80s, and it just gives you a great vibe if you're 80s 90s era kids, and that's Stranger Things. Stranger Things did not make our list. It's your fault.
Yeah, it's my fault. I was thinking about all these new shows that I was watching, and I like Stranger Things. I haven't seen in a while because I've been consuming so many other new shows, and I'm surprised it didn't make my list. I mean, Winona Ryder, oh my God, she's like an 80s icon, 80s, 90s icon. And I mean, the first season was so good. And I think the second and third seasons have done a good job of living up to the first season. But man, that show is so good. It's nostalgic. I mean, I feel bad I didn't put it on my list, but there are better shows.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, the theme of tonight was I've seen one season and haven't, picked it back up. Stranger Things, amazing first season. Did not pick it up for the second and third yet. I may revisit. My wife hasn't seen it yet, so I may start over if it catches her. I think it might because of the 80s vibe. But it's those who haven't seen it,
I would say that season 2 and season 3 are also worth it. Like I'm like recalling like how each season went, and season 2 and season 3 are worth it. Like first season, amazing. Season 2, still really good. Season 3, I'm just waiting for season 4 now. I think it's going to end on season 4. And
Okay.
I'm pretty excited about the show. I feel bad I didn't put it on the list for all you out there who are Stranger Things fans. I'm sorry I didn't put it on my list.
Oh man, at work last year, I'm trying to think if it was. I guess it was just Halloween, but I was working at Disney at the time, and they were going all out for Halloween, and they had an entire floor dedicated to Stranger Things. They had people, a girl dressed up as 11, and you'd go through. They turned the cubicles into this tunnel, like as if you went into the walls. You have to check it out.
The upside down.
Yes. So here's the quick synopsis from Netflix. When a young boy vanishes, a small town uncovers a mystery involving a secret experiments, terrifying supernatural forces, and one strange little girl, which is her name is 11. But yeah, so the supernatural is going on. Things are coming out of the wall. People are going into different worlds. But yeah, so that whole floor was dedicated to Stranger Things. That's how big this show is, and they did an outstanding job.
Yeah, I have a personal connection to this show because one, it's set in the '80s, and I was born in the '80s, and two, the one of the main characters, other than 11, is named Mike, and then like the boys, the troop of people, the kids. They all play like Dungeons and Dragons together, and they're nerds, and they dress up like Ghostbusters in one episode. And it's just like, it's like extremely nostalgic, and you like, it hits those like things that like when I was a child, I felt that aesthetic, you know, the VHS, you know, like the music that was coming, and the music is so good. Each season, the music is so good because it uses a lot of those 80s references, but they have some really great synth music. Oh, like honestly, that is one of the best put together aesthetics for a TV show. I mean, it really, they know what they were doing when they were marketing that show. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, it is a good. I'm definitely, as I'm thinking of this right now. Yeah, I definitely need to go back and rewatch the first one so I can get back into the second, third, and then the fourth. Any other shows do you think are snubs from the list?
There are two. I wouldn't consider one of them a snub. The first one is that is a snub is Firefly. It only got one season and a movie, and fans of that show have been waiting for another season of that show. Like
James brought that up earlier.
Later. Who did?
James in the chat when we were speaking of funny type sci-fi shows, he threw out Firefly, which I hadn't seen.
Okay, so it's just one season. It's a sci-fi western, just like you were talking about Westworld. Okay. It's a sci-fi western where there are these inner planets which are very developed, and then all the planets on the outskirts are like the wild, wild west. And they're trying to terraform these planets to get resources and things like that, you know, grow food, move cattle. And the whole story is about this smuggler / transit crew of people who, you know, they pick up things and they move them to somewhere else. And they kind of like go around these outskirts of these outer planets. It's just like the wild, wild west, you know, they'll land in a place and, you know, it'll be, you know, people just got there and they're terraforming it, and it's got a lot of humor to it, but the story is really well written. And the writer Joss Whedon really thought about like language. So when you watch that show, like they'll be talking and then they'll get really heated and then they'll like curse, but they'll curse in like Mandarin or something like that. And So it's thought about years and years in the future, but like the people don't always dress so futuristically. It's kind of it's a very interesting show, and I love it, but sci-fi has gone a lot further than that now. And one show I must talk about if I'm going to talk about sci-fi. It's just coming out now on HBO. It's called Lovecraft Country.
I haven't seen it yet. Okay, tell me the premise. I know I've seen it on my Twitter timeline, so I knew it was something I need to catch up on.
Okay, so it's set in like the 1950s, 1960s, and it's about this veteran who comes back from the war. He gets a letter from his father. It's only 2 episodes. And this show is giving me more in 2 episodes than I've gotten from a whole season of a television show. Like, I've watched 2 episodes and I'm like, the story could end right here and I would be happy because it's that good. It's written by J.J. Abrams again and Jordan Peele. So it's got an amazing set of writers. So it's about this guy who comes back from the war, and he's really into like pulp fiction, like sci-fi fiction and stuff like that. But it's called Lovecraft Country because a lot of the aesthetic is taken from H.P. Lovecraft's writing. The main characters of the show are black, and if you know a lot about the history of H.P. Lovecraft, he was a fairly racist dude. And they actually address that very quickly in a sort of humorous way in the first episode. But this guy gets in the car and he's trying to go find his dad that he got this letter from. He gets in the car with his uncle, and his uncle drives in the 50s and 60s is driving around the country, creating a little travel guide for black people, telling them where safe places are to go. And so there's a lot of racial tension in the show, but it's I watch it with my roommate and we both are hooked after 2 episodes. And what he told me, he told me the show is he has this great quote about it. He says, "The show is not good because it's woke. The show is woke because it's so good. It's so well written." In just 2 episodes, I think this is going to be one of the best TV shows in the sci-fi genre.
Wow.
Of our time. So
it's got a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes so far. So 96%. That's pretty freaking good. So
I'm just warning. I'm telling the listeners, get on that train while it's hot. It's such a good show.
All right. I'm like I said, every weekend when it is on, I've been getting a lot of things flooded on my timeline. So I might wait till it's all out so I can just binge watch it, because the wife and I love binge watching.
Well, it'll be worth it for sure.
Yeah. So hopefully I can hang on until then. All right, Mike, it's time. It's time to talk about the number one modern sci-fi TV show of all time. This show is another one that you put me onto that I had to take a look at because I did not see. I'm apparently the only one because it's got multiple awards over the cast over the span of the 4 seasons that it's been on. I don't really know how to explain it because let me just go ahead and put it out. From 2015 through 2019, The Expanse, that was a top vote from the tribe. And can you break, because it's one, it reminded me when I first saw the premiere episode, I immediately thought Star Wars. So I was like, okay, where's this gonna go?
Let me give you a little description of how I got into this show.
Okay.
My sister and brother-in-law, I went up to visit them, and they said this show is one of the best sci-fi shows out there. You need to watch it. And I watched like the first episode and I fell asleep. So I fell asleep.
Okay. Glad you said that.
because it does start slow. I will admit that it starts slow, but they have a lot to explain to you. And if you're a listener and you haven't heard this show, I'm going to give you the breakdown so you can kind of understand where the show starts. So the thing is, it takes place like 300 years or so in the future, when Earth has gone through climate change. Earth has like developed technology, and Earth has gone to Mars, and they've started colonizing Mars. But then after they've colonized Mars, Mars breaks off from Earth. So there are two political entities, Earth and Mars. Earth is so overpopulated that like people can't find jobs. There's like climate change has happened, and the ocean has risen. So there's a giant 25, 30-foot wall around New York so it doesn't flood. And people are just on universal basic income because they're just so overpopulated, and like technology is so far advanced that people can't find jobs. And then Mars is a huge military like industrial complex. Like they're very they work on their military. They're very strong. They can blow pretty much anybody out of the water, but they're low on resources because they're on this new planet. But so between Earth and Mars, they start off in this kind of Cold War, where they don't like each other, but they trade. And people on Mars think people on Earth are lazy because everybody's on universal income, no one can find jobs. Then there's this whole other group of people called Belters, people who live in the asteroid belt.
Mm-hmm.
They've lived there for hundreds of years and generations, and they've become accustomed to zero gravity. So their bodies become lanky, and they can't go from living in the belt anymore and just go and live on Earth because the gravity of Earth will crush them. But so they just mine ice off of asteroids, and they sell water, clean water.
Scarce, right?
Yeah, water's scarce, and so they sell it. They sell water to Mars and Earth, and there's all this political drama that it starts off in. And the main story follows a crew of people who are on this like big shipping spaceship, and a small crew goes off from that spaceship to go investigate like a derelict ship. Without trying to spoil too much, well, in the first two episodes, the crew that jumped off become the main characters because the ship that they were on gets destroyed, and they're
right.
And
we
so
see
that
in the first episode,
yeah, and so it creates this motley crew of characters. There's a Belter, there's an Earth person. Oh, there's a couple Earth people, and then there's a person from Mars. These people from three different like futuristic nationalities, or maybe planetalities. I don't know, because they don't live in nations anymore. They live on planets, right? And they're all they kind of have to work together to survive, but they're caught in the middle of this this kind of big spark for war. I mean, this giant ship blew up, and now Mars doesn't know who did it, and Earth doesn't know who did it. So they get kind of in the middle of this like war, and they're this ship in the middle of this war. And the story follows them and the leaders of Mars and the leaders of Earth and people, and this detective who lives on the belt. That's how it starts. I know it's a lot of background, but that first few episodes try to lay all that out. So on top of it being like this space show, there's an element of sci-fi and new species, but it's really kind of hard to understand at first because even the people in the show are trying to figure it out. But there's this whole political drama going on the whole time. So that's what keeps you hooked. Like the political drama and this like on the brink of war between these planets. That's what really keeps you hooked.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, how long does it take to really jump into a TV series. This one, you see the 93%, but it's interesting because the first season scored probably one of the lowest of the night that we've talked about. The first season only got 77, but from there it's goes up to 95 for the second, 100 for the third, and 100 for the fourth. So the train really gets rolling as the season progresses, and I guess as the characters develop a little bit. But here's the thing that bugs me about sci-fi and future, talking about future, what's going on in the future, is the clothing. The clothing messes with me because they always either try and go to like weird clothing, or you think of Fifth Element, weird hairstyles and stuff like that. In The Expanse, for some reason my brain just kept going on it. Like, if you look at history and the way it's evolved from, everybody, specifically women, were fully clothed. You can't see your ankles, and then as the centuries go, a little bit less and a little bit less, and then now with branding and marketing, we see logos all over. When we get to The Expanse, everything is very generic. Lots of blues. You don't see any brands. Why don't these TV shows and movies build brands? Like, maybe they can't show Nike because they don't want to, for whatever reason, give them the sponsorship. But why don't they create their own brands and make it a little bit realistic, instead of acting as this? I don't know if you've seen Kanye West's clothing line where it looks like it's just hobo-ish. Like, what is this? This is not. That takes me out because I don't think it's realistic. I don't think we'll convert back to nondescript clothing.
Well, it's funny you say that because, like, I think the world we live in right now is like all about individuality and all about like name brands, and which kind of leads back to like a capitalist society. I mean, when I started talking about The Expanse, I mean, like, everybody on Earth is on a universal basic income because there are no jobs. Technology has advanced to a level
so there is no Nike.
Yeah, so technology is so advanced, and there's no work for people to do. So all it is really survival. And like, they do enjoy, like, have entertainment and things. But like, you kind of look, it's funny because you kind of look at like Mars in this, and they're a very like fascist militaristic society. And they're ready to go to war. Their people are very well like trained and very disciplined, while the people on Earth are just living and thriving because they're not thriving because they're still limited on their resources, but there's like not that much money, there's not that much food. And like the people in the belt, they're the poorest of the poor too. I mean, they live in zero G, and they're scavenging, and they're getting, they're in dangerous situations and things like that. But when I started to talk about like all this political stuff in the show, that's how it starts, and the politics of the show stays there. But like, then they start running into weird things. Towards the middle of the first season, the end of the first season, things start to take a real sci-fi, like unrealistic turn. But they do a very good job of explaining it, and they think about the math behind the show. They think about what's behind the scenes. What, like when I talked about in Firefly where people would speak Mandarin, in this show, like the Belters have like this unique accent. They almost speak their own kind of like dialect of English, and it kind of like a Creole patois kind of accent and dialect. And they think about that because I think the thing about The Expanse, it was a book before it became a TV show, and I think the writers thought about everything in the show. And when it comes to those brands, I guess in the world that they envisioned, maybe that wasn't kind of part of it. But okay. I think you're right, though. I would like to see like another show that kept that, kept kind of the world we're in, which is like the futuristic things, Yeah,
it'd be an interesting twist on things. So, yeah, crazy. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I just in the chat they just put that Chadwick Boseman, who's recently starred in Black Panther, has passed away due to colon cancer. One of the up and coming actors of our time.
Oh man,
I think he's 42 or 43. Died of colon cancer. Wow. Condolences to his family.
Yeah, that's very recent too. Just got announced.
Yeah, crazy. Sorry, I was a little distracted there. With that news.
Yeah.
But okay, rest in peace, and again, condolences to his family. Back to sci-fi and possibly seeing some of that continuance of what today looks like, instead of going off into a it's hard to imagine what tomorrow will look like, and let alone 100 years, 300 years, but
that gets me to
yeah, go ahead.
Well, that kind of gets me to my fascination with sci-fi. Like, sci-fi thinks about the future, thinks about the way things could be, and especially when it's based around like science, or like like Black Mirror or even Star Trek. And it's funny how people imagine these things, and then like in the case of Star Trek, some of the things they imagine are now real. They're now parts of our reality. Like it's just kind of amazing how like medical advancements and just like some of your everyday things, like I don't know if this is true, but like Star Trek had those like opening and closing doors, and Star Trek came out like decades and decades ago, and now like now those opening and closing doors are everywhere. They're at every like grocery store and all these stores. And I love how sci-fi can it imitates life and then imagines it a little differently, but it also influences our lives because like some of these writers think of things that scientists haven't thought of, and then scientists find a way to figure it out. So that's why I find these shows so fascinating. And like in the case of Black Mirror, they take our technology and move us just one step forward and show us this dystopian future we could live in, and then it makes us step back a little bit and be like, maybe we shouldn't go down that road,
Right, a la Black Mirror.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been a great episode, getting in and breaking down some of these sci-fi. Some of these shows I had never seen. So I think this is a good episode to kind of open the door. I know Shane is telling me he hadn't heard. I think he's heard of one out of our top 5. So just broadening, people's perspective and what's out there. Mike, I know I don't know if you're still touring.
Well, no, I'm not doing much music anymore.
Okay.
Just kind of staying at home a lot now. But
okay.
Yeah. If you're asking me for a plug, I run this venue called the Concerts at the Courtroom, and over this break since March, haven't been doing that much, but I've been working on a video series for local bands here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So if people are interested, they could look up Concerts at the Courtroom on Facebook. And at some point, hopefully in this next month, we'll start releasing some local music and local band videos that we shot and recorded in our space, the Courtroom in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So
awesome. Very cool. All right, guys, we thank you. Make sure you follow us. Gat. I don't think that's the name. Over Gat. Goat_debate on social platforms there. It's been a pleasure, and please join us. I believe I will be joined by my regular co-host, but next week. But if not, you never know who's going to fill in. Over these past couple of weeks, we've had a couple different people, so we may have two totally different strangers up in here next week. But we thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Peace.